The following is a Sports Ethos presentation. Hello, what is up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Roundball, Ramble. I am your host, Corbin Ford. You can follow me on Twitter at CorbinNBA. Sports Ethos presentation, like I always say, so check out Sports Ethos on Twitter at Sports Ethos, SportsEthos, online, sportsethos.com. Pretty simple. Basketball, football, baseball, fantasy, all of that. You want it, they have it there. So check them out on Twitter at Sports Ethos. Listen, y'all, I am really excited. We have a big guest. Usually I just used to hearing me or some friends of mine. Love all of them. But today we got an actual NBA draft expert, NBA exec, a person I've been fortunate to have met, director of scouting with Sports Business Classroom, former front office executive with the New Orleans Pelicans. We have Dan Purcell on. You can find him on Twitter at IM_Dan_P. Dan, how are you doing, sir?
I'm good. Thanks so much for having me on. I appreciate it.
Oh, absolutely. I was laughing, bring you on. I was talking just beforehand about having heard you on pod before, and fortunate to have been at Sports Business Classroom, which we'll get to in a minute, and getting to meet you and everyone else there kind of firsthand. But to start off with, we have a good conversation here. Obviously working with SBC, having experience in the NBA front office. Can you kind of describe, I guess, your basketball journey up to this point? I mean, you're still actively, helping people like myself and also, continuing to give insight from a front office perspective. But I know I'm always interested in hearing the stories of others, especially those who have reached, in my mind, the highest level, like actually working with the NBA. So I'm curious just to how you kind of got to where you are.
Yeah, I mean, it's a long story. I'll try to condense. So I'm originally from Cleveland, Ohio, and I played basketball in college at Lake Erie College, which is a D2 school up
Okay.
east of Cleveland. And after I graduated, we were pretty successful there. And after I graduated, I wanted to keep just being involved with basketball. I always thought that my goal, I can be very stubborn sometimes in my decision making, and I decided that I wanted to work in the NBA. I wanted to compete against my peers. I wanted to compete against teams. I wanted to be a part of winning, and winning big and winning championships. And that's always, I don't know that will ever not be a goal of mine, but it was at the time, I didn't have kids or anything like that. So it was a sole focus for me. And I didn't really, I had no NBA connections whatsoever. My dad was a teacher and insurance salesman, and my mom was an insurance salesman.
Wow.
And and my sister Colleen, she's been driving a school bus for 25 years. So there were no NBA ties in my family. So I said, I got to figure out a way.
Mm-hmm.
And so I started working at the time, Cleveland Cavaliers camps, which were like summer camps. They were run by the National Basketball Academy at the time. And I did those, and I got to know people. We did, and they would have player camps, but like Larry Hughes and people, Danielle Marshall, all the Cleveland type, the Cleveland players that would sign up for doing camps and whatnot. But I think more importantly, I got to meet some of the people in the Cavs. I got to meet their front office operations. I got to meet some of their coaching staff. I got to meet their business side operations as well. People that were in tickets and marketing, promotions. I started my network really with announcers. Ahmed, who does I don't know if anybody's been to a Cavs game, but Ahmed does intros and whatnot, or he does a lot of the mic signals and whatnot. And I actually just got to know him well, and then I just built it out from there. met Moondog, great guy, and just built it out from there. And then obviously started talking to agents, started dealing with players more, and then started dealing with coaches. And then the coaches and the front office guys would have their kids come to our stuff, and it just starts building from there. So
Wow.
my journey started, my journey started there, and then obviously I coached AAU for a good 5 6 years, and then total. I moved to New Orleans
Oh wow.
in 2009.
Okay.
Opened a branch of the National Basketball Academy here in New Orleans, and it just really started working there. And the coolest thing was my office. Matt Biggers was the guy who signed us, and he was the vice president of marketing, I believe, for the then Hornets. Great guy.
Oh wow.
And so he actually put our offices in in their offices, in the Hornets offices. So boom, all of a sudden, here I am. I am sitting next to Devin Johnson, who is now the assistant coach or associate head coach, I should say now, at Texas A&M.
Oh wow.
Eddie Johnson, who's his cousin, who I'm very good friends with now. And then Shelly Kayet as well, who is now, I believe she is CEO or I think she's CFO of the Cavs.
Okay.
Yeah, so Shelly, and then working with Shelly as well, and then just working with all these people that are super talented and super awesome people, and ultimately my big breakdown there was Coach Monty Williams agreed to
Mm-hmm.
do a summer camp, and he they let me be in charge of it, in terms of in charge, like organizing and making
Mm-hmm.
sure the kids were there, and all the back end stuff, and just making sure we're on schedule and we're doing things. And it took an hour or two to get for Monty and I to get on the same page, but then we did, and it was beautiful. Like, it was so awesome working with him, and being able to work for him in this case, where it's his camp, and it's his likeness, and we got to do that for 2 years. So, and then just built it out from there. And then ultimately, I asked Bryson Graham, who was the video coordinator at the time for the Hornets.
Mm-hmm.
He is now the assistant general manager in New Orleans.
Wow.
And Bryson, I just approached him and said, "Hey, I'd like to help. I just want to help. I don't want money. I don't want anything. I want to learn. I want to do. I want to be.
Yeah.
And he was gracious enough to say, yeah, let's get you in. And so I was doing the night shift from 8 9 p.m., whenever those West Coast games started, and be in there till 1 2 3 a.m., cutting film and making sure it was ready for him, and some of the other video guys that were in there, and just starting from scratch. And it came from a place of, I think Bryson was so um, just gracious with me, because I think he knew it came from a place of purity. Like, I really just wanted to learn. Like, I wanted to be in there and I wanted to do stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Coach Mont and I think Dell Demps took notice of it. And ultimately, I got offered a job in the front office, and of course I took it. And I'd say the rest is history, pretty much. But I was in New Orleans for I think it was 10 seasons total, 9 seasons total, somewhere in there.
Wow. Almost a
And
decade, really.
then
Yeah.
it's a long time, big chunk of my life, which was great. It was the best thing ever happened to me up to that point. And then after my tenure was over there, I had always I learned the CBA from Larry Kuhn. If anybody doesn't know who Larry Kuhn is, you obviously don't study the CBA.
For
Um,
sure.
but I learned the CBA from Larry's FAQ page, and I went to his deep dive in 2017 or 18,
Okay.
17, and maybe it was 18. And I went to his salary cap deep dive and learned more than I had known before, and it was good to be there. But just started having a friendship with Larry and Dave DeFore, who helps organize a lot of this stuff for Larry, and then obviously Albert Hall, who runs Summer League with Warren Legary. I mean, both those guys Warren and Albert have been great to me, and letting me talk draft and talk what I love, and being a real big support system, and I appreciate them for that. It's been fun, but I guess it goes back to, you know, purpose, right? What's my purpose? And, if I'm
Yeah.
not actively in it, I want to pass my knowledge on to the next group of people who are probably smarter than me. And that's where sports business classroom comes in. And I think, like I said, I think it's partly because of my dad. My dad was a teacher, and I always loved teaching when I coached AAU. That was why I did it. I just love the teaching aspect and the competing. Obviously, you want to compete and win and develop, and but it's just a way for me to pass what I know on, and it's hopefully it can help. I mean, obviously, we've had people that like you start your own thing, or
Hmm.
the no trade clause guys, or
Yes.
there's people that have jobs in the NBA right now that were in sports business classroom,
Hmm.
and or they're in the media, which they wanted to be in. So it's been a really cool transition as of now. And so long-winded answer, but I really am thankful for where I'm at.
Oh no, I appreciate it. I mean, just learning, like you said, from someone who said I have a goal, and I kind of feel like I relate to not maybe working in the NBA front office, but having like no ties. It's just me, and there's one plan that I want to get to, and like, how can I get from point A to point C, point D? And you just kept grinding and trying to like you made your own opportunities in a way from like just working and make yourself available, but also being able to meet people and kind of go from there. And yeah, that feels like the perfect kind of segue. You went into it yourself in the sports business classroom, and I mean, I've recent alum. I did the virtual one before that, and just know several friends of mine for years who had went there and just told me how good it was. Simon Sheridan Gordon, good friend of mine. Others who had experienced the program and were like, hey, like this is kind of where you want to go. And I had my first actual physical experience there last year, and it was amazing. I mean, it's funny that you're on because one of the points that stuck out to me, I had just a blast of a time. It really just kind of flew, but I will not forget. I was a member of the. There's one listeners. Yeah, I've already talked about this before, but there's one segment of SBC where it's kind of your like main goal, or it's kind of the big. I'm not gonna be a good. I'm not the best person describing it. It's like the main event is how I looked at it, and you are grouped with a few other colleagues, and you manage a team, and you are going to go through a mock off season, mock trade deadline, one of those activities. And you're going to coordinate it all from like in terms of okay, here's our targets to go after the trade, here's our team direction, here's what we're trying to do. You're going to have a media person that's going to be able to spin it a certain type of way. It's really immersive, really cool. But doing the virtual side in 2020, we had kind of gotten a full experience, but there was something different in this past year where we did like you kind of met your goals, this is what we want to do, and then we had a chance to like submit those, or to like voice those out to a panel of judges and get some feedback from it. And I
Right.
will not forget, we were the Thunder, and it was you. I think it was
Set
Dave,
part now.
Seth Partner, yes, and
Yeah.
y'all. Oh my gosh, like y'all gave some very direct interaction feedback in a way that I wasn't expecting, but like afterwards like grew to love because I was like, wow, like this is maybe the type of feedback I would get. I thought, oh, this is gonna be easy. We're the Thunder, we're trying to rebuild, like we're gonna try to go for all the draft picks, the company line. And
Hmm.
the way that y'all had kind of expressed it to us was, hey, why can't you not think a certain type of way? Like, what if this happens? What if that happens? And I had no answers for y'all. I kind of stammered my way through it. I was like, good point. We'll think about it. But like that for me was like one of the big things I pulled away from because it forced me to think about basketball in a different type of way than maybe I had been used to with executives and people around basketball who had been there and could personally attest to, hey, it's not always going to go how, armchair GM might imagine it.
Yeah. Yeah. The whole point of that, and that was the halfway point. We were at a certain
Yeah.
point, and we kind of grill you guys a little bit, but the point of that exercise is to it's kind of like you're arguing your thesis, right? You have a thesis plan, you want to do this, this is your goal, right? And now you're taking the next step of arguing why you're there, where you're going, and how you're doing it, right? And our goal with that is to make it direct, but not in a disrespectful way by
No, not
any
at all.
means.
Yeah, it was
Yeah,
fun.
not at all.
Just
No,
direct.
what we try to do is we try to make you think different, because in the NBA, in my experience, it's been if you're the same way every single time, other GMs, other front offices, they start to see your pattern, and they can start predicting you, and they can start to see your patterns, and they can start to say, well, if we do this, we can push this button and maybe get this. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what we were trying to do, is just to make you think, have a different perspective, because a decision maker, you need to have 30 different perspectives, because there's, or 29, well, 30 if you include your team,
Mm-hmm.
30 other different perspectives of how this looks to them, right? And you have to be able to process that information within 30 seconds, or else you might lose your next deal, you know?
Wow. Yeah. Yeah, that's crazy, and it's true, and it's one thing that I think you not only explained with everyone else in the midst of that practicum, but also, I mean, I took in my major was scouting, so learning from you, learning from Dave Dufour. I made a joke just this past week. I watched more Obi Toppin in that one week than I've watched in the whole season after, just because how like we were okay. This is what a scouting report looks like, and you had
Yeah.
people from, I know there was a member, I think his name was Dave as well, from the Clippers, if I remember correctly. I
Dave
might be
Silverns.
okay
Yep.
there. Yeah, and so like learning from people in the actual industry, it was a whole different look that completely changed my outlook on getting into the career and coming at it not from like a super fan perspective, because at our heart we all are fans, but also like, okay, this is the work, this is the grind, this is the type of mental not only fortitude to continue to get to this level, but also like actual knowledge, like you said, you're being taught kind of what to look at, what to look for, how to evaluate. Forget the cab, that's a whole nother lesson I'm still trying to get my head around. So it was an amazing experience, and I think they're kind of wrapping, we're getting close to the end now on that. I know it starts July 7th to the 12th, is that correct, or 10th to the 15th?
No, the 10th through the 15th this year
10th to the 15th.
at Summer League. Yeah, it's July 10th through 15th, totally immersive. And that was, I was kind of getting into, was about kind of having to do all that on my own, all this
Hmm.
networking on my own, all this stuff on my own, and it took years, years of doing this and just staying diligent, right? And
Yeah.
staying on course, and not going and deciding to, and maybe I'm boring, but deciding not to go out Friday and Saturday night, but stay in and try to figure out who's playing where, but not just that, who's there, who's going to go, who's
Mm.
this player's mom, who's this player's cousin. Does this player have a brother or sister? Where are they playing at? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it's a whole. For me, I spent years, instead of going out and drinking and, I guess, being more social. It's not really my scene to begin with. But I mean, I
Hmm.
could have just gone out there and wasted in what I thought was wasting time. And for me, I was trying to figure it out. And when I wasn't trying to figure it out, I was watching more basketball. And then when I wasn't watching more basketball, I was trying to figure it out more. And when I
Wow.
wasn't, and then that cycle just keeps. You have to be obsessed with it,
Yeah.
and I didn't realize it at the time, but it's an obsession. I was obsessively going into this thing saying, I am going to get there. I have to figure out a way. I got to figure out a way. And when I get there, I'll figure out some more stuff, but I got to figure out this right now. But then once I started getting my feet wet, I had to like say, okay, when I get there, what do I do? You know what I mean? When I get to this spot, where do I go? What do I do? So, that being said, like for sports business classroom, like I wish I would have had that. I would have
Hmm.
paid anything. I would have put it on that. And this is me because I'm obsessed, right? At this point, I would have done anything. I would have found a way to get to Vegas. I found a way to get to um, where we need to go.
Yeah.
And that's what SBC does now. And it gives people an opportunity to come literally 5 days. I think Jerry West is yeah, I think Jerry West is now on the docket as well. So you can add him. I mean, in the past, we've had Mark Cuban and Tommy Shepard, the VP of the Wizards, like Kiki Vandeweghe, who's,
Yes.
I mean, we've had everybody, and we're still going to continue to bring a bunch of people, obviously, but that's not really the thing. The shtick is that you're at summer league and you're getting reps and you're actually going to be doing. And yes, you get to meet some great people, and it's definitely a perk. And I think it's like one of the best things you can do. But you're going to be able to sit in the stands where the NBA scouts are. You're going to be able to talk to these people. You're going to be able to see what's going on. So I just think the program is so awesome. There's just nothing else like it.
No, I completely agree with you. I definitely, Dan. Like you said, someone who's been there as well. Yeah, everything he said, just he said it better. So definitely make sure to check out Sports Business Classroom. I would even try to tune in still now, even though it's getting close. Check it out. If you're not even able to get in this year, hey, save up, be even more ready for next year. It's an amazing experience. Someone who, I mean, I finally got in last year. I've been trying for like 3 years before that, and just kind of trying to stay after it. So having done it, it's just an amazing experience. Sportsbusinessclassroom.com. Get right there on the website. Far right, you'll see register business basketball. Sign up. Just stay tuned, y'all. It's an amazing experience. You really will learn from the best and be at the mecca for fans like ourselves. So definitely make sure to do that. Sportsbusinessclassroom.com. Dan, this has been just great alone, just hearing how you've gotten where you are. But I want to take this expertise now that, I have access to it, and try to apply it more to this draft class.
Finally, some good stuff. All right. This is
There
the
we
good
go.
stuff.
Yes,
I'm
sir.
here for the popcorn.
I appreciate it. And so we got this 2020 draft class, and this is honestly the first draft class I've actually like started early. Usually I come into the draft like I guess most NBA fans do, right after, middle of the playoffs, just before draft lottery. Okay, who are we looking at? This is the first year that I started looking at them from the end of last year. And so I have some thoughts, but getting it from your perspective, just looking at the draft class as a whole, what are your thoughts on it? How do you think it compares to, maybe last year with Cade Cunningham or even the year before in the 2020 draft class?
I think this draft is a little deeper in terms of talent.
Mm,
Um, I think deeper as in I just think as you get further down in the first round, you're still going to get a guy who may be a starter key reserve.
okay.
Whereas last year it was a pretty significant drop off, especially outside the lottery, in my opinion. There was definitely a different bucket that started, right?
Hmm.
So for me this year, I don't think there's a Kevin Garnett in this class. I don't think there's a Tim Duncan, a guy who's number one, and he's going to be a future Hall of Famer, top 75 player. I don't know that that's in this draft. I do know that there's three really good players at the top, and they're all going to be core players moving forward. And but they also all have their limitations, right?
Hmm.
So it'll be an interesting draft to say the least. But overall, I think you can keep getting starter key reserves all the way down into 20s this year, and possibly even, um, you know, into the end of the first round.
Oh wow. Okay, definitely. And I like the fact you said that from looking at it past the 20s. Okay, there's still gonna be players who are, you know, going to be able to play a role. I was looking at last year's draft, and again, this difference of me not knowing as much. I was like, wow, okay, like you had a few stars. It was kind of star laden at the top last year, and I saw there was a few, like you said, that seventh, ninth, a few players that have some potential, but maybe did not contribute as much this season. Whereas with this draft class, maybe it's not as big in terms of that one must grab guy. But like you said, there are players, that can provide value in later selections. And I guess it actually brings me to the top three because I'm personally not as high. I have one guy I really do like, but I'm not as high on these top three in terms of like franchise changing players as I was, maybe last year. I was really high on Anthony Edwards, or other players, in years past. To you, you already kind of said this class does go deeper, but does it go deeper to you in potential of NBA stars, or is it really more of the top three is probably where you're going to find that player?
No, I think you can find an NBA star in the top probably 10, top 12 for. I mean, I think you're going to find multiple ones in this draft. I mean, after the top three, I
Hmm.
think there's a possibility for about four guys to be future All Stars. Like, there's just some really good players. Like, and I'm not going to say they're going to be 18-time All Stars. I'm just saying
Hmm.
that it could be an All Star two throughout their career, maybe three, maybe an All NBA, third team, second team, first team if they have a good year. So I think that's definitely a possibility.
Okay, definitely. Wow. And I guess kind kind of going with that, with players and team needs, and this is something just a personal philosophy question I'm curious about. Always like to ask, execs or people in this situation, what is your personal philosophy of best player available versus team needs, and how would you apply that to this specific draft class? I mean, you could, for example, let's say Orlando, like they obviously need a big, they obviously have a type, but like, do you get the best of that? Do you get like, okay, we need shooting? Kind of how do you like to look at a team in terms of where they're picking a player and how you choose to evaluate, who would be the best pick for that team?
Yeah, for me, I like the Bill Belichick thought process of take the best player that's available, but there's a couple caveats to that. One, if you already have LeBron James, you don't need to draft, and you're picking five,
Hmm.
you don't need to draft another small forward ball handling or a ball handling guard. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there's repetition, but also it's like you have to look at it pragmatically. If I take a guy here and he's the same position or the same type of player as my best player, there aren't going to be enough minutes for him to develop, right?
Yeah.
So unless I'm planning on trading X player, then that opens up different can of worms. But we'll just say that that player's under contract. Why it's going to be really hard for that young player to develop because he's going to have to develop outside of his strengths, and then on top of it, he's going to have limited minutes while doing that. And especially the higher you go in the draft, you want to start complementing your best players, right? Or building a core if you don't
Hmm.
have one. So, if I'm sitting at one, I'm going to feel pretty good taking Jabari. I think Jabari's or Chet. I'm be pretty comfortable. But at four, I'm Sack. I'm already at athletic guard. Am I really going to be comfortable taking Jaden Ivey and trying to see if it fits between Fox, Mitchell? I think Mitchell can play with anybody, but is it going to fit between Fox and Ivy because they both need the ball to be successful, right?
Yeah.
So, but if you already have De'Aaron Fox and you're going to ride with Fox, then it's going to be really hard to take Ivy because you're not going to have the minutes, or he's going to have to play a role, or he's going to have to play off position, and then you're not maximizing his talents. You might as well just take in Keegan Murray instead. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or taking Ben Matherin, or I'm not even Ben Matherin, but taking Keegan Murray, or traded down to get AJ Griffin, or traded
Hmm.
down to get Dyson Daniels. Like, you might as well have just done that. So there's to me, if I'm unsure, I'm going to rely on my list. The list that our team has put on a big board, and we'll go right down that list. But if it comes down to that list, and the next player on that list is where we're picking, and he's in direct competition with our best player and or the guy that we're committed to, then I'm probably either going to try to get off of it, or I'm going to take a guy that is going to the next guy down on our list.
Got you. Okay, so if it's like, for the most part, you are going to get the best
You
player,
got to have
unless,
minutes.
yeah, you got to have that, unless there's not a spot clear for that person. I
You
get it.
have to have minutes. Yeah. Why? If you're picking this high in the draft, most times you don't have a star. Not everybody's Golden State, but even Golden State, they picked Wiseman. They're like, well, you know what? We just need bigs. Like our guards are the best guards in the world, and our power forward is the best power forward in the world. And I mean, we need role players, but we really need rebounding and bigs. And man, if we can pick up second pick in the draft, I mean, we don't actually like need him because we
Yeah.
got Looney, but we don't need him. But you know what? We're picking. Might as well take the guy that we have where we can allot minutes to,
That makes
allot
sense.
minutes to his development. And, people are obviously they won the title, but some people are looking at it like, man, they just wasted this number two pick on this guy. Well, who else were you going to waste it on? I understand other guys were better, but what are they going to do? Play over Steph? They're going to
Yeah.
get shots over Clay. They're going to take possessions away from Draymond handling the ball. Like, what do you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't
Yeah.
make sense.
No, you're right.
It doesn't make sense.
And Jordan Poole too, like you said. So you're right. That Jordan
Sure,
Poole's already
Jordan
there. So
Poole.
yeah, yeah. That's actually a really, again, a holistic view of it. Like, hey, you could easily go for LaMelo, Anthony Edwards. Where are they playing? Because as good as those guys are, they're not starting over. The backcourt you have. They're fighting with a Poole or a Clay. Yeah, it's still yeah. That makes a lot of
You're fighting
sense.
to be the fourth wheel on. I'm just using Wiseman as an example,
Hmm.
but you're drafting to be the fourth best player on the team. That's what you're drafting in that position, saying, can this guy be the fourth best player at that time? At the time when they drafted, they're like, okay, can he be our fourth best player? Yeah, he could probably be.
Hmm.
Okay, let's take him. He's got upside. He's big. He's got a lot of talent. He wants to work. Sure. Okay.
There it is. I'm glad. Thank you. That was a perfect example of like taking that best player available versus team needs and actually putting it into like an example that we can easily call to mind because you're right. I spend way too much time on Twitter, Dan. I see the arguments there, and it's like, and it's like, yeah, well, they could have done with X, Y, Z. And normally, I don't tune, I don't have the bandwidth to actually participate in them, but I do read them. And so there's the actual like, been there, done that. Let's not waste any more time on like, litigating all of this and just putting it where it needs to be. So I definitely appreciate that insight there. Kind of taking that best player available, and let's try to figure this out. You have it's a big three has been talked about, big three plus number four if you take in how you feel about Jaden Ivey. But you have Jabari Smith Jr., sweet shooting big man from Auburn. You have Paulo Banchero, kind of the do-it-all guy from Duke. Then Chet Holmgren, who's been rightfully, in my opinion, called the unicorn because I really don't have a comp or anything for him. How do you personally rank these big three? I think I kind of did it in my question to you, like right now, and how I laid them out. But I'm curious as to how you have these three ranked personally on your personal board.
So my latest mock, you guys can see it at IM_DanP.
Okay.
Also, I believe at on NoTradeClause.com, you guys can see it. But for me, I have Jabari at 1. I have Chet at 2. I have Paulo at 3. And it's more so looking at it. I'm trying to be. I had Chet there because I think you can flop 1 or 2 pretty easy. Those guys are pretty. They have their strengths. They have their weaknesses, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think the problem is with Orlando that I have a problem with is they were one of the worst shooting 3-point shooting teams in the league last year. And it's been historically an issue for them has been 3-point shooting, right? Over the last, 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
So when you're 6'9", 6'10", pick and pop big, your worst case scenario, right? I mean, I always try to go worst case scenario. So if this guy fails, he is this player, right? To me, Jabari's worst scenario is Channing Frye, right? Can't move his feet, can't dribble but once, twice, but shoots the heck out of it and is a really good NBA player who plays for 12 years, right? So that's to me, that's kind of his floor. And if that's your floor, that's pretty good. That's a pretty good floor to be at. It's way better than saying maybe Brian Anderson or, somebody like that.
Oh, yeah.
And so for me, I think Jabari does 3 things for them. It gives them more size. It gives them more length. He's not a great defender, obviously, and he doesn't have the greatest feet, but I think playing in the NBA will speed him up and it'll make him better. And then of course, the whole strength and conditioning in the NBA is way different than college just because the amount of time you're allowed to have, right? It's just time. It's not that these guys know more or know less. It's just time that you're allowed. And so I think with that, and I think with the need that they have at shooting, and they have guards. They have guards that penetrate and kick, guards that they need spacers and pick and roll partners. And I just think that he fits what they need at this moment. So he fits a need, but also he's probably the best player overall in the draft, right? Just from a skill standpoint. And his shooting is so elite, it puts him up and over everybody else.
Oh, yeah. No, I completely agree. I'm very high on Jabari Smith Jr. I think that you said it's not even just the shooting, it's the shooting and the size, the fact that defensively he is versatile to be able to kind of cover certain positions. And yeah, well,
he does okay. He does okay in that. He does good enough.
Oh, okay. So he's not okay. Not super high on his defensive. Are you higher on his potential or just like not sound where he is right now?
It's hard for any big to switch on to Steph Curry.
Oh, very
it's
true.
hard. It's hard to switch on to Damian Lillard. Like this isn't hard. This is the NBA, man. This isn't like you don't get days off. No. Like your day off is Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. That's your day off.
Yikes.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's still not a walk in the park.
And that's not at all. It's not even close. So as a big, if you're switching, right, and that's what Orlando wants to do, they want to be able to switch more and they want to be able to play a little more aggressively defensively, and that means you have to switch. Sometimes you'll blitz the ball, in the quarter court, things like that. So, I just think Jabari's a good fit for them. I think he's one of those guys. He's also the safest pick out of those 3. I know people say Paolo is, but really he is. To me, he's like, because he's not going to mess things up. He's going to come in and add value immediately. Your shooting is going to go up tenfold. Your spacing increases by, X amount, literally by the time, just by him coming out and walking out on the floor and being able to shoot like he does.
I was about to ask you about Paolo being the safest. So I agree. I think Jabari is as well. Um, what about Paolo? What are your kind of thoughts on Paolo? And I have a question for you on chat that like people are going, well, he's safe. You know, he's someone that's going to be able to come in and offensively. I like his passing as well, but it's much been talked about his passing, his mid-range scoring ability, the self-creation there. The fact that I mean, defensively there's some issues or some concerns, but that whoever gets him kind of slots in and knows what they're getting. I've heard a lot of comparisons like Detroit Blake Griffin or like late Clippers Blake Griffin or I
Mm.
mean I've heard some for Julius Randle. Yeah, what are your thoughts on general form? I don't really have those comparisons in my head, but honestly I don't really kind of have a comparison for him.
Yeah, I mean, the cool thing about all three of these guys, they're super unique, right?
Hmm.
So and again, I honestly think Paolo, there's a lot of argument he could be number one. Like there really is. He would fit in great in Orlando, in my opinion. I think the thing is he just doesn't shoot it. Like you'll hear this a lot when I talk to fellow, player evaluators and whatnot. It's like
Hmm.
he just doesn't shoot it well enough. He isn't locked in enough. He isn't able to switch enough. You know what I'm saying? It's like
Yeah,
when he
just
takes over, yes, oh my God, yes, he can play and he's amazing, but he disappears and then you don't see him and then you wonder where he's at and then he doesn't do anything sometimes to help himself get an easy bucket. You know what I mean? Like
yeah.
there's times where he's just like, well, I'm struggling, so I'm just going to keep playing the way I play through it, rather than saying, you know what, I haven't played well in the last quarter or the last like 5, 6 possessions I can remember. So why don't I go get this offensive rebound, put it back, just see the ball go through the hoop, or why don't I, attack closeouts instead of just attacking a set defense? Like why don't I try to get something on the other side or tell coach, hey, let's run this so I can just help me. I'm struggling. Help me get to the free throw line and I can get something through. I think if he learns that how to like manipulate the game and like mold the game to help him, like those are little minute things that really for him are the difference between him being 3-1 right now is like he doesn't help himself. Whereas Jabari, he'll shoot himself right out of it. He's such a good shooter. He'll shoot himself out of an issue. You know
Hmm.
what I mean? Like he will
Yeah.
just shoot himself. And then Chet, if he's not shooting well, he's going to try to at least go to the post, even though he's not good at it. But he'll try to get to the pinch post, to the elbow. He'll flash weak side. He'll get to the short corner. He'll get to the slot. Like he'll do a lot of stuff to try to impact the game, or he'll rebound harder, or he'll try to block more shots, or he'll try to alter more shots, like, or he'll switch and he'll try to sit in the stance. Like there's just a lot of little stuff that Chet does that he's like, okay, well I'm not doing well here, so now I'm going to go try this to impact the game, or this is where I'm good today. You know what I mean?
I get it.
So I think that's my biggest thing with, and the thing I've talked to other people about with Paolo is like he just doesn't help himself. But like that's the thing in the NBA, you have to be able to help yourself. Like Steph has an off night. He's finding out exactly what happened. You know what I mean? And he's saying, okay, I need to make sure, even if he's off, he still helps himself by moving without the ball, right? He
Yeah.
just moves without the ball. He's like, oh shit, okay, well, excuse my language, sorry.
Oh, you're
He
good.
says,
No, it's
oh man.
fine.
So he says, he'll say, okay, I'm not getting anything front side pick and roll primary. Secondary ball swing, man, I just can't get anything. I can't get it right. You know what I'm going to do? Let's run some floppy. Let's run some, we'll run some pistol, run some 21, just something to get me without the ball. And now I can come off pin downs and I can off, just something where I can go back to a bread and butter. But he helps himself by saying, okay, well, I tried this, I tried that, and I did it multiple times. Let's try off the ball and let me see if I can get open doing it this way. Like that's the difference to me.
Okay.
And again, I'm not trying to compare Paolo to Steph. I'm just using Steph as an example of a guy when he's struggling, he does things to help himself get back on track.
Oh no, most definitely. It's funny you bring that up, and again, the Twitter Corbin. I don't know if you saw this, the Drake basketball league thing.
No, I didn't
Okay,
see
so
it.
I mean, you probably are better off not seeing it, but I guess it was like this league that he won that he actually made, and they won the tournament. He was like, "Listen, it's like Game 7, Kobe. Like my shot wasn't falling, so I decided to stick down and play defense." And the ridiculousness of Drake comparing himself even remotely to Kobe was hilarious. But also, like you said, like okay, if I'm not being able to impact winning basketball at one aspect, can I go in and funnel it another way? And you brought up Steph Curry in an amazing way in comparison to Paulo, which I wasn't even aware of. I agree with you in terms of like just shy of being like the shooter I would like, or just shy of being, whatever player I am looking for. But like you said, like, and this is, I guess, more evaluation, like, where is he, okay, how can I compensate for my lack of, offensive impact right now? Am I able to pound the boards more, or whatever the case may be? So, no, I think that was really good insight. And I guess at least my last player, and this is Chet, and oh man, the discourse around chat's been so interesting for me, especially. I'm just gonna admit I'm very much a very beginner of a scout or an analyzer in that type of way. So I definitely don't feel like I'm an authority in any form or fashion on a player. But like, I haven't liked the discourse. I'm just gonna be frank about Chet. Either I'm one of those people who've had concerns, or have concern about the frame and how it translates, not because of anything that, is he any injury history, anything like that, but just like we haven't seen anything like him before. And in my mind, I put this argument, I'm like, listen, like, not seeing anything like a player can be a good thing, but like in 75 years of basketball, seeing all the games that are available, all the players around, like, if you haven't seen a player like that, like, is it at least fair to have questions? Like, is it fair to not say, oh yeah, he's gonna come and not be able to hold up, which I'm not saying, but is it fair to wonder, is he going to be able to, like, sustain, like, the same type of impact? That's my question to you, Dan. Like, is he going to be able to bring that same impact he had in college, and just translate an NBA level and be the same type of potential defensive breaker with the 3-point shooting from the top, and able to bring the ball, up in the front court at least, for a trailer three? I guess I don't even know if that's a question I'm throwing at you, Dan. That's just like a thought, but I'm trying to get, like, what are your thoughts on, like, what are your thoughts on Chet? I guess that's the summation of my ramble here.
So Chet's a unicorn, right? I like unicorns. I'm not scared of unicorns. I
Okay.
embrace unicorns, right? And he fits he fits the criteria for me. One, he has an NBA translatable skill, his shooting, right? So if
Okay.
anything happens, and I always say one, you always want more, obviously. You want to be a five-tool player, obviously, but
Hmm.
in the NBA, you have to have an NBA skill. Like JJ Redick, you knew he's going to fly off screens, he's going to come off those double pin downs, and he's going to shoot that thing. And you know what? If he's having a bad day, you know he's at least going to hit 40% of them, right? He's going to hit 40% of those twos at the elbow or at the top of the key. He's going to hit 40%, get himself on track, get him outside the 3 point line, and move on from there. So I feel like with Chet, he checks the box. He has NBA skills.
Hmm.
NBA translatable skills, which I think are his shooting and his passing and his rim protection, right? The everybody's, because he's awkward. He honestly, his body looks like Sean Bradley. That's what it looks like to me. If you got anybody remember Sean Bradley, I'm
Yeah.
giving you a throwback,
Old school.
and that's not a good thing. but but that's what it kind of looks like. But I
Okay.
think it's different in the sense that the game is different today. The way it's played is different. It's a less violent game, so it's still super physical, but it's a
Hmm.
less violent game. So um, I think he's going to be fine in that sense. What I worry about, I see a lot of valgus in the left knee. That's when his knee turns in, when he goes down or sits in a squat and whatnot. So I worry
Hmm.
about the valgus issue. I worry about knee issues with him, and I worry about longevity in the sense of is he have a 7 year career, a 9 year career? I don't think so. I think he has a pretty good career because I do think you have to understand like these strength and conditioning coaches and the physical therapists for teams are going to be having him do yoga twice a week, and he's going to be doing things like strengthening things and maintenance every day, and he wants to work. That's the thing. Chet wants to work. So I think for me, he has so many skills. Why not take a chance on him? Like if he fails, he fails. Like that's what you're getting, right? But his,
Yeah.
his skills are on point. He's a super skilled, not super athletic guy, but he's athletic enough, and he has good stride. It's just a matter of getting his hips stronger, getting his legs stronger, getting his core stronger. I mean, and I can say that honestly about 75% of the prospects in this draft. They got
Wow.
to get stronger, right?
Uh-huh.
So it's to me, I think I don't think OKC can go wrong in the sense of taking him there. I think he fits in well. They have one of the best medical staffs in the league too, and one of the best strength staffs. Like I just think it's a really good fit for him. I think he's lucky because it's a good fit for him.
Okay, it's one of those that work. I like that. I like that, definitely. Looking kind of at the draft outside of just those big three, are there any players that I don't want to say overrated, but maybe are valued higher than you have them. People are really on the train of, player X, Y, Z that you're like, hey, that's cool. I like that player, but I'm not sure why we want him to be like potential franchise saver for the Sacramento Kings.
I I don't know if I have anybody that I'm like that I dislike their game that much that they're up there. This draft has a lot of good
Oh, that's
players.
good. That's a good
I would
thing.
say I'd say if there's a guy that has a shroud of mystery and doubt about him, it's Shaden
hmm
Sharp.
mm.
I've seen a lot of number one ranked high school players just go down the drain. So everybody says he's the number one. He was the number one high school ranked player. Doesn't mean anything to me. I've seen those guys come and go left and right. So
Dime a dozen.
that and then just with how things went down in Kentucky, it's a little bit. I get it. I get it. But at the same time, it's I just think it's going to be hard to are fully unless you can fully tell ownership that like I'm just going to take this pick and I hope that it works out.
hmm
Um, it'd be hard for me to pull the trigger on him in the top, probably the top 9, 10. On the Knicks, yeah, I'll roll the dice. But even the Wizards, I'd roll the dice. I need something to help. So it's got to be a team that I'll roll the dice on the mystery that is Shaden Sharp in terms of translatable skills, in terms of um, impact, and what kind of career is he going to have.
Got you, for sure, for sure. And kind of on the other end of the spectrum, how about sleepers? Like any
Yeah.
thoughts on guys? Yeah,
Oh yeah. The sleepers are the best part, right?
like you know
Um,
it.
I think, and I'm going to butcher his name, and I'm sorry, but Ousmane Dieng,
Mm,
from France. I'm a fan of his. I think he's going to be. I think he has a chance to be a good player. So that could be a name. Um, Ben Matherin isn't really in. It's not a surprise.
oh yeah, he's got some steam though. I think in the last couple weeks for sure though. Like at
Yeah.
least higher than before. He was definitely like top 10. I want to say though, right?
Let me look at my mock here real
Oh
quick.
yeah,
That's a
my
good
fault.
question.
For sure. Yeah.
I gotta look at my mock here. Also, I'm gonna.
All right. Definitely make sure to check out my
Um,
no trade
I
clause,
would
y'all.
say, yeah, I would say. I mean, Dyson Daniels is a surprise guy. I don't think a lot of people knew about him,
hmm
even though he played a whole year in the G League. Um, just going through my list here, who people think be a surprise. Jeremy Sochan's going to be a surprise for a lot of people.
Okay.
Um, somebody I'm super not high on is Ty Ty Washington.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Um, Marjan Beauchamp, I like a lot. I don't know that he's a green room invite, but I do think he's going to be all right. I like Nikola Jovic as well. I like him at the end of the first. I think he can actually come in and play. He's a really good passer. I think his skills will be able
Oh, like translate.
to transfer. Yeah, translate.
Okay.
After that, later in the draft, Christian Braun, I really like. I would think that any team um, from San Antonio to Houston to Miami, I think are would be great places for him. Memphis is another good place for him. Um, but yeah, I think that's and
That's
Kendall Brown, Wendell Moore. Those are my other two guys.
okay. I'm about to say you gave me more than I bargained for. That's a solid group there.
All right.
No, I appreciate it. Absolutely. And I guess this is kind of the last kind of draft related question, but given the Pelicans background that you have, I felt I had to ask. Also, I'm really curious because I mean, look at their recent playoff success. Having Stephen McCollum, presumably going to be coming to terms with an extension for Zion Williamson soon. Who knows how it's going to work? But with the Pelicans in the draft, holding the eighth pick, who's the best player in your opinion available, like that you would like them to make a selection for? And is that also a pick that you think should be in play for a trade? I don't know, but I'm already looking at Portland, kind of thinking that I think like after forwards in play, but like with a extra focus on Portland at 7. Is the Pelicans at 8 a pick that you think is also, if not a drafted player, in play for a certain player?
So it's twofold. Let's just say they keep the pick, right?
Yeah.
Um, I think there's a bucket of players in that pool. It'll be what's left over of Dyson Daniels, O'Shea Agbaji, AJ Griffin, Ben Matherin, um, I'm missing one guy.
My guy Johnny Davis.
Johnny Davis. There
I
you go.
love
Yeah,
Johnny
yeah.
Davis. Yeah.
And Shaden Sharp, right?
Okay.
That grouping right there. It'll
Hmm.
be one of those guys. I like from a culture standpoint, I love AJ Griffin. From a shooting standpoint, I love AJ Griffin.
Okay.
For them, just for the sheer fact that he doesn't demand the ball, and with Zion back, there's not going to be a lot of touches for a rookie to come in. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think he's not the greatest closeout defender. He does a good job when the ball's stationary, but when the ball's swung and he has to close out, his feet get a little stuck in cement. But I like him as a team defender, and I like him as a person. I think he's just a phenomenal guy, and I think he's good for the culture too there. So if they keep it, I'd be looking at Griffin or Dyson Daniels. Another good kid too, Dyson Daniels. Um, I personally think they're going to get off of it. I think
Oh.
there's and this is just, I said this last week I think on a no trade clause
Hmm.
podcast, but and I tweeted about it on Friday night as well about number 8 and number 12. Oops, sorry, being swapped
Oh wow.
with OKC, and I'm trying. I've heard it's got good legs, and it could be Sochan that they take at 12.
Oh wow.
So yeah, that would. I think if I'm them at that point, and I don't feel like any of those guys are going to help me win, because
Hmm.
I have to think I'm in win mode, right? Because
Yeah.
I'm going to be the 6th seed next year, 5th or 6th seed most likely, pending injuries. So I'm probably going to be the 5th or 6th seed. I need a guy that can come impact winning right away. So for me, if it's 8, I like Griffin. If Mathurin is there, I'm taking Mathurin 100%. Keegan Murray will be gone. Ivy obviously will be gone. So Dyson Daniels will probably be gone too. So I would, if I have to choose between Griffin, Ochai Agbaji, Johnny Davis, and Dyson Daniels, I'm feeling pretty good about where I'm at.
Okay. I like that for sure. I mean, that's cool, even the potential to trade down. But I like you said, that where they're sitting with a few of those swingmen that can kind of fit a need. I like that.
And
Dan,
it's what
this.
they need.
Mhm.
It's what they need.
Oh, for sure. I actually was hoping that they would get one more guy. Okay. Well, let me just before I close this out, in terms of the Pelicans specifically, because if you look like, I imagine Herb Jones is definitely a part of that starting five. Zion,
Mm-hmm.
Brandon Ingram, CJ McCollum. Um, is CJ in your mind like the guy to play essentially point? I mean, Zion's gonna handle the ball, so's Brandon Ingram, but I mean, in that backcourt, are you getting another guy to play like alongside him from like a shooting guard perspective, unless of course you get Dyson Daniels, in which I imagine he could kind of be the point guard, if you will. Does it even matter? I guess I'm kind of curious since we
Doesn't
haven't seen.
matter. It
Okay.
does. Yeah, I think if you watch enough basketball, not
Hmm.
you, I'm just saying in
Oh
general.
no, yeah, no, I'm
Someone
talking.
watches enough in today's NBA, you need multiple ball handlers.
Yeah,
And the teams that have multiple ball handlers are usually the best teams. Look at Golden State, look at Boston.
yeah.
Even though Boston turns it over a lot, they had multiple ball handlers. You look at Phoenix's big issue was when Booker went out, they only had Chris Paul. They had Cam as well, but like Cam
Yeah.
didn't, he's not a
Didn't look
high
comfortable at
level.
all. Yeah.
Right, right. That's what I'm saying. So, multiple guards. I mean, look at Milwaukee. They throw Middleton, Holiday, DiVincenzo when he was there.
Hmm.
Like they were just throwing guys. At the George Hill, like you know what I
Yeah.
mean. Like they're just
Yeah.
Giannis. They just throw guys. At Bud just says, "Okay, let's go. We're running this. You got the ball. Let's go."
Hmm.
And I think that's the same approach the Pelicans will do. They have Ingram, they have McCollum. I think you're good with that. Herb Jones can facilitate enough. He's a good enough passer, and he doesn't turn the ball over if you need it. Devontae Graham is a little questionable, but you have Alvarado now, who did a really good job of not turning the ball over as much. So if
Yeah.
he can get his turnovers down, I think he's a viable option as well. So I mean, and Zion can handle it. People forget that Zion handled it too. Like it wasn't like he didn't handle the ball ever.
Yeah.
How do you think he got steals and dunks and highlight reels? You know what I mean? It wasn't just because he just jumped high. It
Hmm.
helped, but I
They,
don't think.
yeah.
Listen, I think if you're sitting here arguing about who the guy is who's going to be dribbling a ball with the Pelicans, you're in a good position because that means if you're arguing is what's CJ going to do, that you're in a very good position.
Definitely. That's that's very true. That's very true. I got one more question for you, Dan. This is something actually, again, I keep referencing SBC, but a lot of just stuff I enhanced on my basketball understanding happened there. But one funny thing that happened, I had my phone. At the time we were doing a trade discussion, and my wallpaper on my phone was just five players, and so I had just one of the colleagues I was talking to. He's like, "Oh, who's on your phone?" And I was paying attention, but I wasn't really paying attention because we were like talking about what moves you're gonna make. I was like, "Oh, those are like my top five players," on of all, not to say of all time, but I was like, these are my top five players. And on my phone, it was a wall screen of Monte Ellis,
Mm,
Russell Westbrook, Terry
mm.
Rozier, Latrell Sprewell, and I am missing one other player. The point being, it literally started a conversation that like Seth Partnow was walking by and he came in. Oh, Michael Beasley, and I had to like clear up. Hey, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say like top five like at all. Like I did not pay the money to be in this program and try to say that Michael Beasley's one of the top five, but I meant they were like my top five favorite players to watch. Like these are the kind of guys I like. Guys who have a little personality. Like I'm not looking for like Chris ball handling. Just put the ball in the bucket. Those are my top five. Like I call it the hoop vibe squad. And I was like, you know what? That's interesting because most people that I run into are like, oh, who are your top five players? Like, we're gonna get some, assemblage of Jordan and Magic and LeBron, but like, no, who are your top five favorite players? Like in general, and then you get more of a diversified response. And I've had a lot of fun asking this question, getting different responses. I've had like all WNBA team. I've had first team, second team, third team. I've had a team of all bigs. I know I interviewed a guy who oh man, I think it was Matt Brooks. He covers the Brooklyn Nets, but or was Brendan Nunez? Anyway, one of them covers either the Nets or the Kings, but they lived in Minnesota, or they were from Minnesota. So all their top five were Timberwolves, even though they are now covering Durant or De'Aaron Fox. So
Hmm.
I guess with that, I say all that to ask you, who are your top five like favorite players of all time, Dan? Just watching, analyzing. I'm
Well,
sure it's a fun list.
personally, from a not a basketball, it's hard to
Mhm.
not have a basketball bias. But
Of course.
so I grew up on the Richfield Coliseum Cavaliers.
Oh.
Um, so I remember being, I think it was 1988 or nine, maybe. I was 4 or 5. I was a
Mhm.
very small kid, and I remember going to Richfield with my dad, and we played. They played the Utah Jazz, and we were sitting up in. I know you don't know Richfield, but it was just a big old like basic arena, right? It was pretty
Okay.
big, but it had super high nosebleeds. We were all the way up in the nosebleeds, and but I always admired those Cavs players. But I would say my 5 favorite players. Oh man, that's tough. I got a lot of favorite players. I would say Danny Ferry,
Okay.
Mark Price, and not in any order. These are just 5 guys.
Just five. Yeah.
Uh, Shaquille O'Neal. When I was a kid, I had Shaq posters all over my walls. I was part of the Shaquille O'Neal fan club. He sent me a letter. It was like the best thing as a 10-year-old kid. It's like the best thing ever, right?
Wow.
And so Shaq, 100%, just he's like he is now. He's a great dude, but I mean, I just had posters of Shaq all over my walls. Um, Man, that's tough. Penny Hardaway's probably on there.
Okay.
Penny, just because I watched the Magic a lot and I loved him with Shaq, and Penny's probably on there, and then man, probably Steph. I mean, Steph's probably on there. I just love watching this, and I hated it when we played them and they kicked our butt in the playoffs. I hated it, but as a fan, as just somebody who loves the game and lives for it, I would say Steph. It's just the way he plays, man. Everybody wishes they could play that way.
Oh, absolutely. I like your starting five. You definitely got dominant big man. You got a lot of floor spacing. I mean, just for everyone, it's Danny Ferry, Mark Price, Shaquille O'Neal, Penny Hardaway, and Steph Curry. And that's kind of cool. And again, like you said, kind of born of your upbringing, your early life in hoops, and then guys you watched more and scouted probably against and Steph. That's really really cool. Wow. Dan, this has been a
You
blast.
didn't see that coming, huh?
I did not see
You
that
didn't see
coming.
the Cavs coming.
No, not at
All
all.
those
And you,
Cavs guys. I was close. It was super close between Brad Doherty and Shaq,
oh wow,
but Shaq for me. Oh yeah, you talk about like I was about to put Chris Mills on that. I like that's
That's
how much I
committed.
followed those Cavs. Those Cavs. You're from Cleveland. When you're from Cleveland, you're committed. That's how it works.
I feel that.
My
Wow.
dad, funny funny story, just or not, but not funny, but you know how it what it means in Cleveland is
Yeah.
my dad is a lifelong Browns, Indians, well, Guardians now, and
Hmm.
Cavs fan, right? I mean, he never misses a game. He is always watching it. We used to listen to Joe Tate, who was the Cavs play-by-play guy. Rest in peace, Joe. He was by far the best.
Hmm.
And you know, it was just always we were always watching sports, right? But he lived and breathed it. We would go to Indians games as much as possible. We go to Cavs games as much as possible. Then the Browns left, obviously, in the '90s, so we didn't get to go. But he just lives and breathes it, right? And he's just been so close every time to winning. Those Indians teams of the '90s, where we blew that lead against the Marlins in '97.
Wow.
95 got beat by the Braves. Like yeah, it goes on and on, right?
Hmm.
My dad lived through the fumble, all that's the drive, the fumble. He lived through all that stuff,
Heard
right?
of those?
And he even watched Jim Brown. Like that's how old my
Oh
dad is. Like
wow,
he was a kid when Jim Brown was playing for the Browns.
the legend.
Um, so when the Cavs won it in 2016, was it
Yep, that
17?
was it. 16, you had it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Hmm.
16.
In fact, today is actually the anniversary of that. I guess Father's Day when they
Yes, it
when they
is.
3-1. Wow.
Yes, they did when LeBron had the block.
Yep.
And and I've never seen the man shed a tear or cry. And I was on the phone with him and he was crying. It was dead silent, and you just hear weeping. You just hear him start to weep. That oh my God, we did it! Like you could tell he was actually crying. So
Wow.
that's what it means to be a Cleveland fan. Like that is like a man who has no affiliation whatsoever in terms of like connections or things like that. It's just pure love for sports and pure love for Cleveland. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And and that's where I come from is guys who are just they there's something inside their soul that it turns, you know? So
Yeah. It really, and that's,
so,
I love that. Like it really gets that visceral kind of reaction from it.
yeah,
Wow.
that's the beauty of sports right there.
Real talk. Real talk. Wow, Dan, this has been an amazing conversation. Just a great time. I thank you for this time and just being able to just talk hoops with you, man. It's really been a great privilege. I know folks can find you at I am underscore. Wait, I totally had that. I think it was I am underscore Dan P. Did I say that right?
Yep.
Oh, perfect. Look at that. Off the dome. But I know you also do. I mean, you've done so many podcasts. Obviously, SBC. Work, of course, with the No Trade Clause. Do you want to like tell everyone like that's kind of where they can find you, but just everything that you're kind of up to?
Yeah, sure. Obviously, Twitter, I am underscore DMP. Instagram is DPRUWM as in man at the end. And then you can check me out No Trade Clause. Listen to any of the No Trade Clause podcasts. Those are SBC alumni who have built their own website and built their own brand. They are some of the smartest, most hardworking guys in the business,
I love them.
and they're hungry and they want. I mean, you probably know some of those
Oh
guys,
yeah, they're great
and
guys.
they're just great dudes on top of it, and they work their tails off. And anything I can do to help, obviously former students, but people who want it. Um, we do podcasts every week. You'll see me on No Ceilings. We're doing a webinar on. We're actually doing a draft webinar on the 22nd, I believe, the day before the draft, and we're going to go over the draft with. It'll be Ryan McDonough, former GM of the Suns, Seth Partnow, formerly of the Bucks, and myself, and we will be going over the NBA draft for free. It's just go to sportsbusinessclassroom.com if you guys want to sign up. It's totally free. Come on in, giving away free alpha.
Wow, there it is. Definitely make sure to do that, John. It's a great opportunity, not only just to learn, but also you heard it. So thanks again, Dan. I really do appreciate you, man. Again, y'all can follow me on Twitter at Corbin NBA. Pretty simple, y'all. Definitely stay tuned for this and more conversation. We're getting close to the draft. Got a lot of more fun stuff coming up. Off season's there. Summer league soon. Really excited for all of that. But for Dan, for myself, we are Frosty. Y'all stay frosty, and I will talk to y'all real soon. All right, y'all. This has been a Sports Ethos presentation.